The Way We Were, where we unearth a thread of continuity in cinema, music, art, culture, society, and politics to discover the connection to each other.
So many colliding headlines about relentless wars, famine, extreme weather events, falling bridges, and surprising election results, including in France and UK. So, are we seeing the emergence of a new world order, or is this the repetition of the eternal ebb and flow of history? This is Rima, and I'm back once again to try and understand if there's any difference at all in the way we were and the way we are today, and if we, the human race, has learned anything at all from the past. Well, a few weeks ago, I watched the 1961 Academy Award winning film Judgment at Nuremberg on Amazon Prime, and it wasn't just about the aftermath of the Holocaust, but the reasons that kind of led us then and now to lose empathy for fellow humans and blind us to their humanity. In retrospect, the film is not just about one historical event or one dark chapter of genocide. It is, in fact, a cautionary tale about the harm propaganda can unleash upon millions of lives. The film begins 2 years after Hitler's suicide and Germany's defeat in the Second World War. This is when Judge Dan Haywood, played by a magnificent Spencer Tracy, arrives from the US in Nuremberg. He is to preside over a military tribunal before which 4 German judges will be tried for their crimes against humanity and their complicity with the Nazi government. He is a curious man, this judge. So he begins to explore the city that, because of its historic ties to the Holy Roman Empire, was turned into a showpiece by the Nazis. They held their conventions and propaganda rallies here. It was here that they passed the Nuremberg laws, revoking German citizenship for all Jews and non-Aryans. Some buildings were constructed by them only for these assemblies, a few of which remained unfinished. The judge walks through the ruins of a city that was once the beating heart of Hitler's power. When he looks at an elevated podium, now empty and bereft, you can hear Hitler's voice and the roar of an oceanic crowd. Because the judge is a curious man and a kind one, he wants to understand how an entire country looked away when such evil stared them in the face. He speaks to his house help first. She was formerly the housekeeper of a German military general who was executed by the Allies. He asks her if she knew what was happening in her city during Hitler's regime. She gets defensive and says, "We are not political, my husband and I. We didn't know anything." And then she bursts out, "I wouldn't say that Hitler did nothing good. He gave jobs, among other things. And as for the other things you're talking about, we do not know." Her husband chimes in, "And even if we knew, what could we have done?" The judge also befriends the widow of the slain general, played by Merlin Dietrich, no less, who insists that she and her husband knew nothing about what was being done to the Jews. And he says, "As far as I can make out, no one in this country knew." When the trial begins, the judge is conflicted by one particular defendant, Ernest Jennings, played by Burt Lancaster. He plays a learned, much respected legal scholar and jurist who is accused, among other things, of sentencing a Jewish man to death, for blood defilement because of his close relationship with a much younger Gentile girl played by Judy Garland. This was a time when associating in any way with the Jew was prohibited, and so the girl was imprisoned also for over 2 years. Judge Dan cannot understand why a man so obviously brilliant would have done nothing when laws were being changed and anybody who was suspected to be against the country was thrown in prison without appeal. Finally, Ernest Janning breaks his silence and, in an outburst that is like a warning bell for all democracies, explains why he went against his conscience. He did it in the name of the country, he says. He adds, there was a fever over the land, a fever of disgrace, of indignity, of hunger. We had a democracy, yes, but it was torn by elements within. Above all, there was fear, fear of today, fear of tomorrow, fear of our neighbors, and fear of ourselves. Only when you understand that can you understand what Hitler meant to us. Because he said to us, lift your heads, be proud to be German. There are devils amongst us, communists, liberals, Jews, gypsies. Once these devils are destroyed, your misery will be destroyed too. And so Janning and men like him remained silent because they loved their country. They said to themselves, what difference does it make if a few racial minorities lose their rights? It's only a passing phase. The country is in danger. We will go forward. Forward is the great password. And then Janning adds, and then one day we looked around and found that we were in an even more terrible danger. What was going to be a passing phase had become a way of life. And this way of life had become the Holocaust. Millions were exterminated, gassed, hung, shot. The credo of the then government was, break the body, break the mind. When the trial concludes, Janning tells Judge Haywood, those people, those millions of people, I never knew it would come to that. You must believe it. And Judge Dan Haywood responds, it came to that the first time you sentenced a man to death who was innocent. The film you see is not just about Germany or what Hitler managed to do to the minds of the Germans, but about how easy it is to turn a nation deaf and blind in the name of nationalism. It also calls out America for its hunger for global dominance, its weak moral compass. It calls out the entire Western world for standing by and letting Hitler let loose the horrors of the Third Reich on millions. The film is directed by Stanley Kramer and written by the brilliant Abby Mon, who, while receiving the Academy Award for his screenplay, said, a writer worth his salt at all has an obligation not only to entertain but to comment on the world in which he lives. As you can see, his commentary on our world has outlived him.
The Way We Were, where we revisit the past to understand how the ebb and flow of popular culture shapes the way we are. Only on The Podcaster.